Chapter 4. A Walk with the Billionaire. Max put on his old jacket and fiddled with his scarf for a long time, as if hoping it would give him time to collect his thoughts. Rockefeller stood by the door, still in his summer suit, without a coat, without a hat, and, what was especially irritating, without the slightest sign of discomfort. "Are you not cold?" Max asked, already knowing the answer. "I'm no longer in a relationship with the weather," Rockefeller answered calmly. It was gray and quiet outside. The snow was light and dry, crunching underfoot. The morning was not quite awake yet. Rare cars, people with heads lowered, steam rising from their mouths. Rockefeller stopped at the edge of the sidewalk and stared for a while. "Surprising," he said. "The city has become faster, and the face is tired." "You're not the first to say that," Max muttered, "but I'm the first to have seen it slow." They walked past a takeout coffee stand. People went in and out almost at a run. "Is this fuel?" Rockefeller asked. "More like a crutch. Means people wake up tired," he noted. Muck schmirked. "Welcome to the 21st century." Rockefeller looked at a woman walking while staring at her phone, barely missing a lamppost. "You carry the whole world in your pocket," he said, "and still don't even watch where you're going." Paradoxical. They reached a small square. The snow lay untouched, with only one path trampled. "You know," Max began, stopping, "you make it all sound too simple." "It's a privilege of old age," Rockefeller answered. "When you see patterns, you talk as if I missed something. But we're in a different time, different rules. Time is always different," Rockefeller said calmly. "It's the favorite excuse of every generation." Max turned to him. "I wasn't born into a wealthy family, and neither was I. I didn't have a starting capital, and neither did I." Max fell silent, but quickly continued, faster, more heatedly. "Competition is fierce. Everything's already divided. Oil was also divided," Rockefeller answered, "especially when I started. Now you can't just go out and become someone." "You can't," he agreed. "You can only decide to be." Max laughed, sharply, almost bitterly. "It sounds beautiful. Motivational quotes. But life is—" "No," Rockefeller shook his head. "It's scarier. And you call it complexity to avoid admitting fear." "Fear." Max clenched his fists in his pockets. "I'm not supposed to be rich." "Of course," Rockefeller nodded. "No one's supposed to be strong or alive." He paused. "But that's not what you're talking about." Max turned away, looking at the gray sky. "I just want peace." No, Rockefeller said softly. "You want not to be asked." The snow kept falling, laying on the shoulders of passers-by, and immediately melting. "You didn't choose poverty," he continued. "You chose invisibility." "That's not true. Truth is rarely pleasant." Much exhaled slowly. "And what if I'm wrong?" "You already are," Rockefeller answered, "just very carefully." Max wanted to say something, argue, find another argument, but he couldn't. And at that moment, he realized the argument was over. Not because Rockefeller was right, but because there was nothing left to say. Scene, the line at Pyataraka. The store is warm, but somehow tired. Plastic baskets, yellow price tags, dim light. Max stands at the self-checkout. The line, silent. People stare at the screens as if looking into wells. Rockefeller stands next to him, hand behind his back. The summer suit in January looks absurd. And because of that, it's even more noticeable that he doesn't care. "What's this?" he asks quietly. "The checkout," Max replies, "just without a cashier." Rockefeller watches as Max scans the bread. Beep. "Milk." Beep. The screen freezes. A message. "Please wait." "Funny," Rockefeller says. You're doing the job that used to be paid for. Muksh. At least it's faster. And no line. Rockefeller slightly tilts his head. There's still a line. Now you're just standing in it with the machine. The purchase doesn't go through. The terminal asks for the payment to be repeated. Max sighs and tries the card again. Someone behind them clicks their tongue in irritation. Rockefeller watches silently. Then, did you notice that neither of you is benefiting? Muck schmirks. Well, sure. It's convenient, modern. No, softly but clearly. Convenient for the owner. Modern as an excuse. And you work for free and thank them for it. Max tenses a little. Come on, it's progress. Automation. Rockefeller. I loved automation, but only when it freed people, not when it turned them into a part of the machine. The screen finally displays payment successful. Thank you. Rockefeller stops, looks at him carefully. That's the most valuable thing they've taken from you. You thank the wrong people who own the system and apologize to those who can't hear you. Muksh is silent. The snow outside the door seems colder than it was a minute ago. Let's go, he says finally. Rockefeller nods. Of course. I love walks after small lessons. Scene. Returning home. Max's thoughts. When Max returned home, he felt as though his shoulders had grown heavier with each step. He took off his shoes, walked into the kitchen, poured some water, and sat down at the table, trying to gather himself. His body was tired, but it wasn't physical exhaustion. He had long learned to ignore fatigue if it was caused by work. This was something else, an unknown tension in his head where everything tried to come together into a single pattern, but couldn't. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the white screen of his phone, which remained silent. The silence became almost suffocating. As soon as he looked up, Rockefeller was standing in the corner of the kitchen, as if wedged between the fridge and the cupboard. His gaze was sharp and attentive, as if the billionaire could say something important at any moment. Max glanced at him, but didn't start the conversation. It was that moment when thoughts simply wouldn't let go. Max knew that tomorrow would be a different day, but the question that was tormenting him still wouldn't leave. Rockefeller noticed his gaze and tilted his head slightly, waiting for Max to say something. Listen, Max finally broke the silence. You used to be so confident. You didn't fear anything. The billionaire silently shook his head, as if confirming that he understood. You always knew what to do, didn't you? Max asked. You just knew how everything worked. Rockefeller remained silent, but his gaze was meaningful. The questions behind it were those that Max didn't dare ask. He still didn't understand how to even begin such a conversation. How to talk to someone whose life had been focused on building enormous capital. Someone who created this world. How could he approach this? Max looked around his tiny kitchen. His gaze fell on the old coffee maker, the box of tea, the samovar. How would Rockefeller look at all this? He'd probably have already made decisions to invest in brands, stocks, or develop modern startups. And maybe, without even understanding that for Max, this wasn't working, or it was but too slowly. You know, Max suddenly said aloud, almost to himself, what would you advise me? He looked back at Rockefeller, but the latter remained silent. I'd probably start by asking you how you see people. You were around them. You knew what moved them. What motivated your partners, your competitors? How did you make them work? Did you know what drove you? Or was it just cold calculation? Did you build an empire because you believed in it? Or just because you could? Max got up again and walked to the window, watching the falling snow. He sighed and turned his gaze away from the window, feeling how everything inside him blurred because of sleeplessness. Would you give up all that power? Max continued in the shadow of his thoughts. You had the strength, and here I am, sitting, making no decisions, and searching for answers in Spiritism. So, how did you even decide to do all this? Silence. Only the snow. The wind blew through the window, and Max was still standing there, not knowing what exactly he wanted to talk to Rockefeller. The latter remained silent. Max tiredly walked into the bedroom. He lay down on the bed. His thoughts kept whirling in his head, but Max finally arrived at something concrete. Well, if I suddenly decide to start something, what will you say? He said, closing his eyes. He didn't expect an answer, but deep inside, he had a feeling that Rockefeller might say something important. Sleep didn't come, but Max's thoughts, like a whirlwind, started to form into a structure. He didn't know what step awaited him, but right now, that night, he didn't care. He didn't care what tomorrow would bring. He turned over onto his side, closed his eyes, hoping that some answer would come to him.